Well, it all began some 20 years ago when President Bush signed landmark legislation establishing a framework for legal protections and rights to be advanced for those with disabilities. The Americans with Disability Act is celebrating its 20th anniversary today, again, July 26, 2010. So much of the disability rights movement began out here in the Bay Area. People seem to forget this. A gentleman by the name of Ed Roberts in 1962 made international news when the headlines wrote, and this is remarkable, it shows you how long ago that actually was. It says, "Cripple got into Berkeley." Those were the headlines of the newspapers. Someone with a disability, referred to as cripple back then, was admitted to the university across the Bay, and as a consequence really led the movement for disability rights. That was again in 1962. It was in 1977 where that movement really took shape, right here, just a stone's throw away in United Nations Plaza in San Francisco, where literally over 100 people assembled and did a sit-in and denied access to a city building. It was the longest sit-in in the history of the rights movement. And it was through that collective effort, and I would argue the collective wisdom of those assembled and the leadership of Ed Roberts coming out of Berkeley in the Bay Area, that the disability rights movement was born in a formal sense, and of course brought to the forefront nationally, bipartisan, Democrats, Republicans, independents, people of all political stripes and ideology came together. Thousands of people assembled when, again, President Bush signed that legislation some 20 years ago today. So I just want to celebrate that milestone. I want to acknowledge the incredible work of Susan Misner and the Mayor's Office of Disability, the Commission, for all their stewardship and for their devotion and faith in the notion of equality. And equality is not just on the basis of ethnicity and race and sexual orientation and gender. It's also a fundamental that needs to be advanced for people that have mobilities, mental issues, as well as physical challenges. All of us are equal. All of us should be given that same God-given right of full access, full participation, full legal rights. And that's really, at the end of the day, what we're celebrating, that unique construct that is so American, that we're all in this together. So happy anniversary. And by the way, speaking of anniversaries, happy anniversary to my wife, Jen. It's our second anniversary. She, of course, is out of the country, so I can't celebrate it with her. So I will celebrate it vis-a-vis my weekly video. Jen, I love you. Happy second anniversary. Well, with that, let me just celebrate a few other milestones of sorts. And that was a very good week, I thought, here in San Francisco last week. We announced the highest on-time performance at Muni in our history. I'm going to repeat that. I know what you're thinking. It can't be true. Well, it was true. 75%. And I know now what you're saying. That bar is low. I acknowledge that. But 75% was the highest ever recorded in a quarterly basis. It was the third quarter of the fiscal year, first quarter of this current calendar year. We're going to follow that up with information about this final quarter, which we don't think will be as good, but will be certainly north of 70%, which will formally make this year the most successful year in Muni's history in terms of on-time performance. Not even close to that mandate of 85%. And I know a thing or two about that since I was the author with then Mayor Brown of Proposition E, where we established that stretch goal of 85% on-time performance. And until we get there, good enough never is. But nonetheless, I want to just acknowledge the good work of the folks over at the MTA, Nat Ford and his team, for a job well done. And let me reinforce this, because just a few days ago, they also were celebrating, of sorts, a report that came from the Federal Highway Administration, or rather the Transit Administration. They came out with an independent review. They do this every 3 years, an independent audit, and they look at 24 criteria within the public transportation realm in terms of operation, maintenance, security, and the like, capital planning, etc. They showed a 90% score for Muni. I think that is very significant. And by the way, objective standards, anything north of 80+% is actually abnormal of sorts, meaning not all the agencies score as well as that. And I want to just acknowledge the MTA again and Nat Ford for a job well done. There were 3 deficiencies of the 24 targets. And 2 out of those, by the time the report was done, had already been completed. Here's the one that we still need to address, interesting one. And I want to promote this, and I think this is one of the things that they highlighted that we're not promoting. If you're on Medicare, you're eligible for discounts on fares. What we are supposed to be doing, and we hadn't been doing, and we will be doing, and we're rolling this out in the next 60 days, we should get them up at all our bus stops. September would be the month we're really pushing this, is we're supposed to put that on all the bus stops and the bus shelters. Now you see we're doing all these brand new bus shelters in the city. They're finally coming out. A lot of them with solar roofs, a lot of them with recycled materials, a lot of them with Wi-Fi, a lot of them with this new technology that keeps all of you in terms of the information you need ready and willing to be more likely to use our public transit because you know when the next bus is coming. Well, that also requires, with those new shelters, this new information to be placed, or this old information that we should be putting up to be placed on those shelters. So I encourage all of you that are on Medicare to take advantage of this. Want to learn more, just call 311 and make sure you avail yourself. But good news there. Again, I always caution every time I bring up Muni and good news. I get barraged with emails and people giving me all the bad news. We read it. I pay attention to it. We are working our tail off. We've never given up on our belief that we can reach that stretch goal of 85%, reduce the accidents, reduce crime. And you saw a couple weeks back, we also saw very good crime numbers on Muni, dramatic 50+% decline in terms of the crime on these key hotspots on Muni because of our new CompStat model policing that's now being adopted on the Muni system. So again, in difficult backdrop with the macroeconomic problems, all those significant state cuts, our Muni drivers, with respect, walking away from the riders by taking a wage increase while everybody else took a wage concession. In spite of all that, we're making progress, including rolling back those reductions in service by 50% in an agreement with the Board of Supervisors through the Transportation Authority. And we hope, we're absolutely committed to getting rid of all those reductions by this time next year. And we're going to be announcing very shortly a framework, a plan to get there. We can't guarantee it because, again, there's still a lot of state funding issues that need to be addressed, but we're going to work our tail off to get there. But this is good news and in a difficult environment, and I thought it was important to highlight that. Other good news of sorts, and I say of sorts because it's qualified good news, was an extraordinary event. And I've been privileged and blessed to be here and representing the city in some fashion. He's the president of the Parking and Traffic Commission on the Board of Supervisors or mayor. But rare have I experienced a more rewarding and extraordinary event than the one we had last week at City Hall, where over 1,000 people came down to City Hall, all with jobs, all with children, all that are in peril of losing their jobs if we do not get an extension of this Jobs Now program we created in the city. 3,620 individuals have the dignity of work and a paycheck. And as they reminded us when they got up on the podium to talk about their history and their life, the dignity that comes with looking at your child in the eyes because you were able to come home with that paycheck, because you worked a day's work. It's pretty extraordinary and pretty significant what we've been able to accomplish with this Jobs Now program. With that, it's in peril. It expires September 30th of this year. Because of the incredible leadership of Speaker Nancy Pelosi, the House of Representatives has committed a $2.5 billion extension of this program nationwide. But the Senate has slowed down that process. And so we're going to have to put all kinds of pressure on the U.S. Senate that finally extended unemployment benefits, but did not extend a program where you don't need to sit at home waiting for a check. You can actually go to work with subsidized employment, create an economic output, and receive a check because you actually worked a day. It is remarkable that we would do one without doing the other, and that's the point we're going to be making to our friends in Congress over the August recess in hopes that we can get this back in to the mix and get it on the president's desk to sign. So we're not giving up on this program. The point of bringing the 1,000 people plus here was put a human face on this and tell the story. The story is so compelling. It's so extraordinary. And when you consider that over roughly 80%, just shy of 80% of the people that are employed are minorities, overwhelming majority come from Bayview Hunters Point, 15 plus hundred African Americans that have jobs. People throughout the diverse communities of the city, from Visitation Valley and the Mission, Chinatown area, and out in the Richmond. It's an extraordinary thing throughout our city. People being employed, doing great work, deserving the paycheck they've earned, and supporting our private sector through private-based employment. It's something to really celebrate. So it was a milestone getting people here, but the real milestone is getting the Senate to recognize the work and extend this extraordinarily important program. Just a quick final point. 3,620 people represents just shy of full 1% of the unemployment rate in the city, meaning roughly 1/10 of those that are unemployed are employed, or roughly would be employed if this program is extended, because of this federal stimulus program. It's an extraordinary number. We have roughly 40,000 people out of work. This is 3,600 folks that would be added to that roll of the unemployed. It would put our unemployment rate north of 10%. We've been able to keep it in single digits, the 6th lowest of the 58 counties in the state. This is one of the reasons. And for those of you who are cynical about the federal stimulus programs, this is real work for real people in the private sector. Thousands of real jobs, not hundreds that were kept or saved, or people that indirectly got benefits, direct benefits. Real federal dollars helping real people, helping private sector businesses, creating real economic benefit and economic stimulus. So jobs now, a lot of work. We're going to keep the faith, and we're going to keep working hard into the future. Wanted just to make a couple of other comments. One is we got first reading done on our budget, but we've got one more reading this week. I want to talk more about the budget next week when we get that final budget vote passed. But I did want to just take a moment and talk about another vote that was very significant that happened last week. On an 8-3 vote, the Board of Supervisors, after many, many years, finally supported the environmental work that was done by the Planning Commission, the Redevelopment Agency, and others to support our Hunters Point plan. This was an initiative that began many years ago, that's received hundreds of millions of dollars of federal appropriation to clean up the shipyard, literally over $500 million just since I've been mayor, that we've been able to put together to clean up the shipyard site from toxics and deal with the issue of environmental justice. In addition, obviously shutting down the Bayview Hunters Point plan and our work that we're going to finally get, and I hope to make an announcement soon about shutting down that Morant plant once and for all, a new timeline on that. But this is the effort to revitalize the area in a positive sense, not just clean it up, but now completely revitalize it, creating anywhere from 12,000 direct jobs to as many as 25,000 jobs when you add up direct and indirect jobs, $11 billion increase to the property tax base in the city, a $6.4 to $6.6 billion increase in our annual gross city product. This is a project that comes along once in a lifetime. Nothing that we have done in this administration, I mean this, is more important to me than this in terms of the proverbial blood, sweat, and tears of Michael Cohen in my office and other representatives of city government have worked their tail off, and Fred Blackwell, the redevelopment agency, and all the others that were stewards of this, and all the leaders in the community, Angelo King, and of course Supervisor Sophie Maxwell, who's put everything she has into this effort. We're finally here with one vote to go, and that's on the actual plan. It looks very promising. I don't want to over-promise, but it looks very promising. And what does it mean? 10,500 new units of housing, 32% of them affordable. In essence, a new Crissy Field out in the southeast sector of San Francisco in terms of parks and open space. Tens of thousands of jobs, as I mentioned, but in addition to that, 2.5 million square feet of jobs that we hope, or rather, that will of commercial space in the R&D, green tech, and digital media space of new commercial space, which will house those jobs. In addition, some 700,000 or so square feet of new retail out in this 700+ acre new redevelopment. This is the promise that we made decades ago to the people of the Southeast sector. This is a promise we need to keep. Even if the 49ers are not keeping their promise to the people of the Southeast, we'll keep ours. With or without the 49ers, we want this project to move forward. But I will note, for those that are wondering, this project does include, with an environmental report that's now complete, as of right zoning complete, a private sector partner in Lennar that will put up $100 million. All that infrastructure that we're committed to, a green light does commit to allowing us to do a new stadium if the 49ers choose to stay in the city that made them the success they are today and the franchise that is valued at what it is today. So we're still hopeful that they'll change their mind and do the right thing for the people of the city and the people of the Southeast sector. So that's on the Hunters Point plan. We're very excited and very proud of the progress, and I thank the Board of Supervisors for their support and their leadership in getting this over the final hurdle, so to speak. One more vote, though, and we're cautious. Here's now opportunity to do the Twitter questions, and I want to just thank everybody for sending in their tweets. And we've got a number of them that I currently am waiting to receive from my press secretary. And here they are, magically. They appear literally in real time. First is from Ron Foxworthy, who says, can you talk in detail about two things, tackling homeless problem and mid-market revitalization effort to get rid of what he calls ugly filth? Fair enough, but I got your point. Both good questions captured into one. The mid-market plan just got a big boost. The National Endowment for the Arts, NEA, just awarded San Francisco $250,000 to invest in arts as a lead commitment to the economic revitalization of the mid-market area, along the lines of what was done in New York City around Times Square. The same idea and ideal is being advanced in the mid-market area to allow arts to be the catalyst for revitalization. We're doing a new redevelopment plan down there. The Planning Commission just supported a new retail development, a significant retail development called City Place, which will be in that 4th and 5th of Market area. We have the arts and storefront programs. We do all these new outdoor fairs. We're anchoring new efforts around Holiday Plaza and UN Plaza. But the arts are the principal component of the catalyst for dramatic change. This is an organic process, a lot of streetscape improvements, bike lane improvements. We did the pilot on shutting down a portion of Market to cars. A lot of really exciting things are happening. And a lot of promises have been made by a lot of different mayors for many, many years, but we actually are seeing real progress being made. And I want you to know this is a firm commitment of mine to do everything I can before they get rid of me here to get this over the hump. But one of the big things was getting that NEA grant, because it was a very prestigious grant, very competitive grant. And what it will do is allow us to leverage, it's not just that $250,000, but leverage up to $1 million of other philanthropic money to continue, again, to advance that catalyst. Arts, the ultimate opportunity to revitalize the mid-market. And to the extent that, Ron, your question is about tackling the homeless, look, I am as committed as any human being to this issue. It's my passion, it's my purpose. 12,000 people are off the streets since I became mayor. 12,000. We've reduced the caseload under Care Not Cash by 84%. Over 3,000 human beings have the dignity of a place to call home, a key, a lock, and a door in a house. Every single day I sit on here going to my department heads to try to help people on city streets and corners. The challenge is we don't have a static population. 12,000 people, when I began, that was the estimated total population homeless. We would have solved the problem. But the reality is people come into the city each and every day. We don't think this, we know this. We did a survey last year that showed 44% of people have been out on the streets and sidewalks less than 90 days. Think about that. So we recognize the problem is much bigger than us. Doesn't mean we don't want to solve it for our partners in other Bay Area counties, or for that matter, even the state and the nation. We do our fair share. We do a lot more than our fair share, and we'll continue. But there's been a 40% decline in the number of people out in the streets and sidewalks since I've become mayor. 40%. For years and years we were going like this. Now we're moving in this direction. We've got a lot more work to do. We've got now a lot of chronic homeless that we're working our tail off to try to get into programs and services, trying to deal with the issue of the transition in the Trans-Bay Terminal area, where we've got 100+ people we're trying to provide for now that have been living in and around the Trans-Bay Terminal, as that now closes to a new temporary facility that will be across the street on the first week of August. We are committed to this. We're not just going to walk away from this. And I just want you to know, I see what you see every day in Mid-Market and 6th Street and 7th Street. I do my walks through the Tenderloin on a weekly basis, north of Market, south of Market, and the Mission area. And we get it. We got work to do, but I want you to know my budget includes extending more supportive housing this year than any time in our city's history. We kept, with the Board of Supervisors, strong support. We were able to work out with the budget agreement a baseline in terms of mental health funding and substance abuse funding, which is important and significant, and avoid those cuts because of their good work and because of our ability to negotiate and work together through this budget process. We'll keep fighting and we'll keep doing more. And that, by the way, ties into Adam Amen. I'm sorry about the pronunciation. Are San Francisco's homeless any better off today than they were under Mayor Willie Brown? Well, the answer sort of connects the dot. I think they are. I mean, those that are still homeless perhaps aren't, but those who are no longer homeless, thousands and thousands of people, their lives have changed dramatically. But again, to the point I was just making, we have an enormous amount more work to do. Good enough never is. There is no having made it on this topic. You know, there's no place. In this case, success is not a definition. Success is not a place. Success is really a direction. And as long as we're moving in the right direction, and I think we are, then we're making progress and we're changing people's lives and we're saving people's lives at the same time. Final question. This one from Ashel Hashim. Again, I apologize for the pronunciation. Have you ever considered giving up office and starting a family band with your cousin Joanna? Interesting question. Now, you're referring, I'm sure, to Joanna Newsom, who is turning out to be a remarkable superstar in this sort of alternative indie era, or indie, I don't know, arena. I don't know how best to quantify her music, but put it this way. She's got talent, I've got none. Ain't ever gonna happen, will never happen. This family tree, clearly that apple collapsed and rotted on the bottom. That was me in terms of the voice and singing. But hers is a rising star. And if you haven't checked out Joanna Newsom, check her out. I'm telling you, she is pretty special. She's remarkable, and I'm proud to be related. I think we're second cousins, not first cousins, but just because she's becoming so very, very popular, I'm happy just to consider her first cousin. Anyway, thanks for the tweets, and look forward to seeing you all next week.